The rain had been falling all morning in downtown Chicago, soft but cold, tapping gently against the tall glass windows of the little restaurant where Claire sat waiting, her fingers wrapped around the stem of a water glass she hadn't yet touched. She had rehearsed this moment for days, a blind date, a chance, a possibility that someone, somewhere, might look at her and see more than her silence, more than her hearing aids, more than the world she had fought so long to navigate alone. But as she sat at the table alone, watching the man she was supposed to meet pause when he realized she was deaf, watching his shoulders stiffen, watching the forced smile vanish from his lips before he muttered an excuse and walked away, she felt the same familiar heaviness spread across her chest, as if life enjoyed reminding her that she was different in all the ways people found inconvenient. If you are watching this and you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of seeing people for who they truly are, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us spread more stories that heal the heart. Claire remained seated even after the man left. Her hands trembled slightly, though she tried to steady them. She kept her eyes on the table, on the white napkin folded neatly beside the silverware, anything to avoid looking around at the people who might have witnessed what happened. She hated that she still felt this way, this tight knot of embarrassment that wasn't hers to carry, yet clung to her every time someone didn't know how to treat her. She could read lips well, she could communicate, she lived independently, she taught art to children at a community center. Her life was not broken. But moments like this made her feel as though someone had pressed a thumb into an old bruise. At the table next to her, a man named Marcus had been quietly eating with his young daughter, a bright-eyed 7-year-old named Harper who insisted on wearing a small pink bow no matter what the weather was like. Marcus had noticed the exchange from the corner of his eye. He had noticed the hopeful way Claire lifted her head when her date approached, and he saw too clearly the defeated look that replaced it when he walked away without even trying to know her. Marcus was a single dad, a man who had seen his share of hurt and had learned how deeply silence could cut even when no words were spoken. He also knew American Sign Language. His late wife had been a teacher for children with hearing loss, and he had learned sign language to speak to her students, never imagining how deeply that would shape him later in life. Claire wasn't crying, but her eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she pulled her purse closer as if preparing to leave. Something about that small movement made Marcus's heart tighten. He didn't know her story, but he didn't need to in order to recognize the loneliness she was trying so hard to hide. He placed a gentle hand on Harper's shoulder, signaling her to wait for a moment, then stood and slowly approached Claire's table. She noticed the movement, lifting her gaze cautiously, her expression guarded. She expected pity. People often looked at her that way, but Marcus's face carried something else, something warm and steady. She could read lips easily enough to catch the shape of his words as he spoke softly, but what took her breath away wasn't his voice. It was his hands. He signed each phrase with practiced, graceful clarity. You deserve better. You deserve someone who won't walk away. For a moment, Claire didn't move. Her breath hitched slightly and she blinked, almost as though unsure she had read him right. His signing wasn't perfect, but it was good. Confident enough to be understood, gentle enough to feel safe. And something about that simple kindness, that brief acknowledgement of her dignity, cracked something open in her chest. She had grown used to being the one who made herself small for others, who tried to lessen the weight of her silence so people wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But here was a stranger who chose to meet her where she was, instead of walking around her like she was an obstacle. Claire nodded slowly in appreciation, and Marcus signed again, telling her that he hadn't meant to intrude, but wanted her to know she wasn't alone. Harper peeked around her father, offering Claire a small, shy wave, and Claire managed a soft smile in return. She wanted to thank him, but she wasn't sure her voice would come out steady. So she simply placed her hand over her heart and nodded. Her way of saying his kindness mattered more than he knew. Marcus returned to his table, but something had shifted in the air. Claire didn't leave. She sat back, breathing a little deeper, letting the moment wash over her like a quiet balm. It had been so long since anyone had shown her kindness that didn't feel like charity. The restaurant seemed different now, still filled with the clinking of dishes, soft chatter, gentle music, but somehow less harsh. Claire found herself glancing at Marcus again, watching the ease with which he spoke to his daughter, the tenderness in every gesture. She wondered what story lived behind his quiet eyes. When Harper accidentally knocked over her juice a few minutes later, Marcus signed to her calmly, encouraging her not to worry, showing her how to clean the spill. Claire couldn't help but smile at their gentle father-daughter rhythm. Something about the scene made her feel grounded again, like maybe the world still held unexpected pockets of grace. As Marcus and Harper finished their meal, Claire sensed she might not see them again, and the thought surprised her with how heavy it felt. She had become accustomed to letting people pass through her life without expectation, but this man, his kindness, had stirred something she hadn't felt in years. When Marcus stood to leave, he looked toward Claire again, his eyes lingering with a question he seemed unsure whether to ask. She met his gaze, offering a small smile that encouraged him forward. He stepped closer and signed gently, asking if she was all right. Claire nodded, telling him so in quiet signs. She signed her thanks, slowly, shyly, because she wasn't used to anyone taking the time to communicate with her this way. He watched her hands with the same respectful focus one gives to something delicate. He then signed something that softened every part of her expression. Sometimes people leave because they're not meant for us. But today, you stayed strong. That means something. She wasn't expecting the warmth that spread through her chest at those words. She wasn't expecting someone to see strength where she felt only disappointment. Marcus added that he and Harper lived nearby, and if she ever wanted company, no pressure, no assumptions, Harper would love another friend who knew sign language. Claire glanced at the little girl who was peeking out from behind her father, smiling brightly, and felt something loosen inside her heart. She nodded, and Marcus carefully wrote his number on a napkin before stepping away, giving her one last encouraging smile. Over the next few weeks, Claire found herself thinking often about that moment. She wasn't sure at first if she would reach out, afraid it might seem strange or that he had only been kind out of sympathy. But one evening, after a long day at the art center, she found herself holding the napkin again and realized she didn't want fear to keep ruling her life. She texted him, simple and unsure, thanking him again and asking how Harper was doing. Marcus replied almost immediately, sending a picture of Harper attempting to draw the alphabet in sign language, proudly claiming she was practicing for her new friend. The message made Claire smile so wide, her cheeks hurt. From that moment, they began to talk more, slowly, gently, building something that felt natural. Sometimes they met at the park, Harper running between them with boundless energy. Sometimes Marcus visited her art center, helping her carry supplies or listening with genuine interest as she signed the stories behind her paintings. He never looked at her like she was less. He never made her feel like her silence was a burden he had to carry. And slowly, Claire began to realize something she hadn't dared to believe for a long time. She was worthy of being seen. She was worthy of being chosen. Marcus wasn't saving her. She didn't need to be saved. But he was reminding her that the world could still hold people who showed up with sincerity, people who understood that love wasn't about perfection, but connection. Claire found herself laughing more, opening up more, letting the small joys of daily life settle into her again. And Marcus, watching her rediscover her own softness, found his world warming in ways he hadn't felt since before his wife had passed. As months passed, Claire became an important part of Harper's life too. The little girl adored her, often climbing onto her lap while Claire guided her hands through new signs. Marcus watched them sometimes with quiet gratitude, knowing that whatever path lay ahead, his life had been changed the moment he saw Claire sitting alone, fighting silent battles he could somehow feel in his bones. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so more people can experience stories that remind us goodness still exists in the world. Before we close, please take a moment to comment below what part of this story moved you the most. It genuinely helps us create more meaningful stories. Claire never forgot the day she was rejected. But she also never forgot what happened moments later, the day a single dad at the next table signed words that melted her heart, opening the door to a future filled not with silence, but with understanding.